Hey guys, welcome. Today what we have, something new for me. This is a resin kit. This is Ralph McQuarrie's Concept X-Wing from Star Wars. Very excited to have this. Been looking for one for quite a while. Finally found one for a reasonable price. The kit itself this is all the parts here. It didn't come with any instructions or any decals. It does come with a, it appears to be a type of R2 unit. Basically all it is a half dome. There's no detail on it, so we'll have to figure out some way of detailing that. You get a very basic cockpit. There is no pilot. Now this is supposed to be 1/72nd scale. Maybe we can find something we can put in to have a pilot for. It only comes like a landing or a flying for configuration. There's no landing gear or anything of that nature on it, so we're going to have it obviously flying. We'll have to make a stand for it. Very basic. Most of the parts are identical. All the engines are the exact same. The intakes are the same. Even the wings are the same. They're the same on both sides. So you just turn it to one side for the left and right wings. So we'll have to figure out all that. Overall, the mold looks pretty good. Again, this is my first time working with resin. We're going to be washing this in warm water first to make sure we don't have any kind of mold release on there. It does seem a little tacky. It's a little shiny right here. There's a couple different colors, almost like he switched resins halfway through the mold. Little rough spots here and there. But overall, I'd say it was pretty nice, pretty sharp looking. These two parts, they fit okay, but it seems like there's a bit of a gap between the two. So we'll have to figure out how to fix that. And of course, we'll have to paint it all up. The weapons seem to have a metal core of some type, I guess to hold them straight, so that's good. And just go from there. So the first thing I need to do is just get these parts all washed up. Alright, so I'm just getting started with my build here. Now I've washed all the parts with some warm water and soap, like dish soap, and a toothbrush, and cleaned it off. Now I did go ahead and I did a little bit of sanding on some of the some rough edges around here, around the cockpit, and I put, as you can see, a coat of primer on it. However, I don't know if this is showing very well. It's kind of glossy looking. This part right here on the frame is very tacky. Rest of it's nice and dry. I don't see any issues with it. The primer helps expose some areas that's going to need some cleanup. For the most part, it's pretty good. It's not bad at all, really. I did a little bit of cleanup with some sanding sticks. But I'm going to sand this down. I guess some release agent or something is still on it right here, but it's just very tacky right there. And it's been drying for over a day, so it should be dry by now. So I'm going to sand it off and clean it off and see if we can keep that from being tacky. I don't want to paint over that with it being that way. Right here we have the cockpit itself. And as you can see, I've added in some styrene just to kind of soup it up. It was very plain looking. It does somewhat show it's going to fit inside the cockpit like so, and it's not the greatest fit either. And I just wanted to put some extra detail in there so when we paint it, you're just not looking at a solid piece. Still working on trying to figure out what I'm going to do for a pilot. And we'll paint this up. We'll have a different color for the cockpit so it kind of stands out and get that focus for you. I just added in a little bit of detail. So I'm about to paint and prime the cockpit there. Alright, so we've did our base coat on the top section. Now I'm going to have to repaint a lot of this, but I wanted to go ahead and paint around the cockpit area and paint the inside, because once I attach the actual cockpit inside, I don't want to have to try to reach in and repaint all that. So the plan here is to, once I fit this inside and seal it, we'll tape over that, mask it, then we'll attach the rest of the ship together. And we'll have to work on it and repaint it. So I want all that done. And now I've of course I had that problem with the stickiness. I sanded it down, reprimed it, and that seemed to get rid of it. So I guess there was some kind of release agent still on there. But it's looking pretty good. Our base coat was just did with Tamiya's Insignia White, the AS20, very common color for Star Wars models. And looking pretty good. The cockpit, let's talk about that a little bit. See if I can get that in focus for you. I've added this, the detail of the styrene plastic. There's still some work to do. I'm going to work on this screen, see if I can make it kind of brighter, maybe put some clear parts, glue or something in there to make it look like a screen. Now the actual pilot was one of this came off of a Revell, the Arc Starfighter, Arc 170 I think, Starfighter. There was a set of 3. That model's been kind of broken apart. So anyway, I've taken one of them, and as you can tell, I've cut them in half. I cut off his legs to fit in there because this is the bottom part's solid. You probably could channel that out, but there's just really no need to do that. I put a piece of styrene plastic to cover up so he'll have a place to sit. But back to him, I've simply just cut his arms and his legs off and painted them with kind of a blue color and black. So really not too immediately identifiable as that. Kind of looks, I think, different enough. But I think when we put them in here, I think it's a good scale for this cockpit. I don't believe that that's a 1/72nd pilot. It looks a little bigger than that. I'm not sure the exact scale of that. Maybe I'll try to look that up. But I think it's just a good fit for the cockpit. Still have a little bit more detail. Once I put this in there, I may try to do some more detail just because of the kind of a strange fit that we get between the sides. But overall, I think it's looking pretty good. Starting to attach our intakes to our wings, and I'm just super gluing that. So the next part is we're going to attach this cockpit inside the upper part of the fuselage, and then attach that to the bottom part, and then we'll have to work on filling that seam that goes all the way around, try to get that looking good. So I'm just going to get busy on that. Alright, I got the fuselage put together with the cockpit inside. We are going to have to just super glue together the 2 halves. Obviously you can see where we have a pretty big gap up here in the front. I'm going to put some Bondo glazing putty in that and try to fill that out. It's probably going to take a lot of sanding to get that smoothened out, and we'll have to probably put some kind of putty in this seam right here. But otherwise it's coming together. It's definitely different than working with plastic. Has some challenges, but just kind of learning as I go with this one. Alright, I've got the fuselage put together. I have the upper part and the lower part, and I've also added in the rear section here. Let's see if I can get it in focus. And as you can see, I'm doing a lot of putty work, mostly with Bondo glazing putty. Seems to be working the best on it. And it's quite a challenge. There's a pretty good seam that runs through here. I think this part's all supposed to be fairly level, and both sides kind of rounded as they met, so it wasn't really level. Plus we had the big gap in the front up here in the nose cone. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to tape off just the cockpit area along with the droid unit, because that's already painted. I don't want paint getting on there. So I'm going to tape off this section around here. Then I'm going to reprime all this, and the primer will help me to see the areas that still need a lot of work. I know there's going to be some areas that need a little touching up, but the primer will help bring it out a little bit. So it's just a work in progress. There's some challenges getting this to come together right, and I think it's looking pretty good, but there's still some work to be done on it. So I'm just going to go ahead and get some primer on this section, see how it's looking. Alright, I've added my coat of primer and let it dry, and as you can see we have some imperfections here in the sanding, and we've got a few small holes up front here in a few places. So a little bit more sanding and puttying and more sanding, and I think we'll get there. Trying to decide whether we'll when we touch these wings, if I'm just going to glue them on, or if I should possibly put a metal pin through the wings, and that way have a little bit more positive attachment point for the wings on there. I haven't decided on that yet. I also need to drill a hole where we're going to do our display stand, how it's going to sit on there, and I may do that obviously I'll do that before we paint. It just has this detail right where I think the hole probably should go, and I hate to mess that up. Ideally we put it right here, but it seems kind of forward, and it seems like a lot of our weight would be on the back, but we'll see. Let's just keep moving along and see where we go. All right, you can see I have the base coat on the fuselage now, and it's having time to dry, and so I'm just getting ready to start masking it off. I don't have any decals, so all the striping is going to have to be masked off and painted. As far as the base coat, there's some minor imperfections here and there, but overall I'm pretty happy with the job that we've got done getting rid of the seam lines. The challenge so far of this model was really just joining these two halves together because of that huge seam that actually starts from the very tip and runs lengthwise, and then you have to connect the rear piece, which also is not the most wasn't the most I guess smooth fit together. It had a very large seams in it that had to be filled, so that was a little bit of a challenge getting that looking good. Like I said, there are a few minor imperfections, but overall I'm pretty happy with it, and I'm ready to start moving on to some of the more detailed painting. All right, so here we are working on some of the detail painting. I think, as I said before, I didn't get any decals, so all this has to be masked off and painted. I've added in this long stripe and then these detail stripes in the middle here, and I've done that on both sides. The wings are still drying right now with the base color. The next section I'll be doing is the orange. There's some orange stripes that go across the top of the fuselage right here, and we'll be masking it off and adding those in. And I've seen some stripes on the wings down in the concept art. I don't really think it shows the tops of the wings, but I have seen a couple of variants, so I might just kind of do my own take on some striping that I liked, and we'll see how that worked out. But I do want to add some orange color to the wings. I think that'll be a nice offset color, contrast color to help bring out the paint job. Back here I've painted up the laser guns, and right now the parts right here of the laser gun are not glued in. They're just kind of set in there, so when I go to glue them I can adjust them to the angles I want, and then I'll add a little drop of super glue to lock them into place. So we're just moving along, and next up is the orange striping. Alright, I'm getting ready to paint on my orange striping here. As you can see, I've masked off the areas that I want to paint orange, and I have also on the wings the pattern, and I've seen a similar pattern on a couple of different Concept X wings, and I have a little bit of a kind of a swishing area here, and that gave me a chance to use my new tool I just purchased. Very simple tool. This is a compass circle cutter, and this has a point and a blade, and it comes with some extra blades and then this little pad so you don't mess up whatever you're cutting. But on here I just did on the map, and you can see where I've cut out this half circle on my masking tape, and then I applied that. I did a straight edge and then applied the half circle to make that kind of swooping area there, just to kind of give it a nice look. So getting ready to move on to the painting. I'm going to mix up my orange. I don't have an orange color on me that I like, so I'm going to be mixing some Tamiya yellow and flat red together to get an orange that I like. And I'll get that painted up and we'll come back. Alright, we have our orange stripes on, and overall I'm very pleased with the color. Again, it was a mixture of Tamiya yellow, I believe it was flat yellow, and Vallejo's flat red mixed together. Also added some Tamiya acrylic thinner in there, but the color is it's mostly yellow, just a few drops of red. If you're trying to mix your own colors, it doesn't take a whole lot of red to change that yellow. But I'm pleased with the actual color. When I pulled the tape off, I didn't have any bleed over, so that was nice. I'm pleased with how the stripes came out. I think they look good. That was the effect that I was kind of going for. As you can see, I've masked off and I'm getting ready to paint the engine nozzles. I've gone ahead and hand brushed in some flat black paint inside the nozzle there, and I think the actual nozzle, I'm a little undecided. I'm going to first try some this Tamiya's flat aluminum and for the nozzle, and I do plan on weathering that, so it won't just be a bright aluminum color. We'll weather it over it with some pastels or some weathering kits or something of that nature. So happy with the stripes. I think they turned out pretty nice. I'm pleased with it. Pleased with the project so far, especially being my first resin kit. So I'm going to paint these nozzles up, and from there we'll have to look at some other detail painting. All right, as you can see, I'm attaching the wings. Now, something I've done to help secure the wings onto the model, as you can see, I've drilled out a small hole, and you can see I've already attached a few of them. And on the wing itself, I've attached, this is just a small nail that I cut the head off the nail and then kind of lined it up and super glued it in place. That way we'll have something kind of positive sticking into the model, help hold it on there. I've attached the other 3 wings. They seem to be going in there or holding it in place just fine. I think that really helps. I just took my time with a little pin vise here and drilled out the hole. Didn't have any issues drilling the holes out. They drilled out nicely. Just take your time with it. Be careful with the resin. And but so far it's looking pretty good. Getting close to completing it. Just got attached to parts, and I'm going to do some weathering to it, maybe some washes. But I think I'll just finish that up, and when I come back, we should be done. All right, so here we are with our finished concept X-Wing by Ralph McQuarrie. Is my first resin model. Overall, I'm pleased with the project. I think it looks really cool. I'm glad to have it to add it to my collection here. Just talking about the finishing up, we got it all assembled, put our wings on. Yeah, I added in a gloss varnish coat and then did a very light wash with just some black enamel paint mixed in with some water. Just very light to kind of bring out some of the details without overpowering it. I also did some dry pastels on some of the edges here in different places. I went through my decal collection and got some assorted decals. They're not really what you see in the concept art, but they're fairly close. We added in different places just to give a little added detail. Just a few decals added, and then we got done with that. I added in a matte varnish from Vallejo in there, brushed that on. Overall, again, I'm happy with the project. A little bit about the model itself. It was purchased by a man named Raymond Perez on Facebook on the Starship Modeling group page. He sometimes advertises his kits here. He does cast them, and occasionally he puts out a post on that Starship Modeling group when he does sell them. I did speak to him or chatted with him recently at the time of making this video, and he says he was about to cast some more. The cost was $55. It's about the cheapest I think you're going to find one of these Ralph McQuarrie concept X-Wings. Now these are 1/72 scale. There are other kits out there. There's a larger kit, I believe a 1/24 scale. It's going to be a lot more expensive, but it's going to be a little bit more detailed. There are some things that are different than the concept art. I know in the concept art these intakes are a little bit different and a few other minor things. But overall, this is a really nice representation of the kit. You know, it is resin, and with that comes a few challenges. It's very different than trying to put together a plastic model. But I think it's turned out fairly nice. Again, these are not the easiest thing to find, and you know, I really love this design. It's one of my favorite designs for the X-Wing, and I like the contrast of the orange colors too. So anyway, guys, I hope you've enjoyed the video, and until next time, everybody have a good one.